Hello and welcome to Insights in Action with Orange 142, where we interview agency leaders and business owners to uncover the journeys, the strategies, and the insights that drive their success. At Orange 142, we're all about transforming brand stories into impactful digital experiences through innovative media and marketing solutions. And today, I'm very lucky to be joined by Natalie of Magnitude Consulting. How's it going, Natalie?
Great, great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. Now, Natalie, I would just like to start this off by understanding a little bit more about your background and a little bit more about Magnitude Consulting.
Yeah, sure. So my background, I've spent my career in business to business tech sector marketing. I won't tell you how many years, but mostly on the in-house side at a couple of smaller companies. Also, was at a company in a 30-person marketing organization. And really, when I started Magnitude 12 years ago, it was to bridge the gap between what I saw bigger B2B tech companies having with their internal marketing function and what small and mid-sized companies need to be successful in today's environment. And so that was really the impetus for starting Magnitude and recognizing that companies need different things in their marketing at different points in their journey. And especially the smaller companies or earlier stage companies really need a lot of different skill sets coming together in the right way at the right time, ideally quickly. And that was really what we set out to do.
Well, and that's really cool because you have this experience working with bigger companies and working with smaller companies. And I think one of the things that happens lots of times is smaller companies will try to play or will try to use strategies that bigger companies are using, and bigger companies are generally playing a much different game when it comes to things like advertising or whatever it might be, or strategy, so I think you bring this really cool, unique perspective into it. Be like, hey, I've worked with companies your size before, and this is what you need, not this. This is for later, right? And so in regards to that, I mean, what specific gaps or challenges did you observe in like traditional agencies that inspired you to establish Magnitude Consulting? And how does your agency or address these issues to better serve B2B SMBs?
Yeah. I would say, and there's some great agencies out there. A lot of them have been very purpose built for like an SEO agency or a digital agency and for a smaller company, if they don't have marketing in-house, or maybe they have a very small marketing team, it can create an environment where the internal team is spending a lot of their time managing agency relationships at the expense of developing the strategy and actually doing the marketing work themselves. And so by us really becoming a fractional marketing department for a client, whether that's augmenting a small team or being the fully outsourced marketing department, we're really embedded and integrated with the client team and can go from developing the go-to-market strategy, the marketing strategy and plan, and all of those foundations, and then bring all of that specialized execution such that all of the kind of marketing efforts are really spent on driving activity and ultimately driving results for a client.
And so could you talk a little bit about how or like what specifically an SMB might want to focus on compared to a mid-market company that might be focusing on something else?
Yeah, and I guess it depends a bit on the company's stage and what their competitive landscape looks like and all of those sorts of things, as well as their expectations, what kind of like budget they're able to invest in marketing. So there's a lot of those components that go into kind of what that should look like. But I would say, especially in that SMB environment, like we know budgets are tight, we know resources are limited. And so being very thoughtful and deliberate around where those investments are going, knowing that the expectation is that companies do need to be firing on a lot of cylinders when it comes to marketing these days, right? Not
Yeah.
having a polished website that performs for you, not having a good digital presence and social media presence, and enabling your sales team the right way. Like all of those things are important. But it really comes down to having the right strategic foundations in place. And so making sure you have a clear focus on who your audience is, what your unique value is that you bring to the market, and how you articulate that so that it resonates with your target market. And then how do you reach and engage the audience? So it might sound like the basics, but it's things that sometimes companies will try to kind of jump ahead or kind of jump into certain like posting to social media without really thinking about all those kind of strategic foundations that then helps you like run faster at the execution.
Right. And I think that's one of the big values an agency like yours or a consultancy like yours brings to the table because a lot of times I feel like, clients will be so tunnel vision into like what they think the value they're providing is, and they need that outside perspective, right? And so it's just like there is so much value in having somebody from the outside come in and be like, hey, we did the market research, or you think or your brand is saying this, but it's actually saying this, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I would say like that target audience, like talking to a clients, like talking to the target market, talking to prospects or other people in that sector, it's hard to argue with what a client says, right? And so when we're doing that market research for a client and bringing them some of that direct customer feedback, it really helps them see, okay, we thought we were coming across this way, but we're really coming across in some other
Yeah.
way where our value proposition isn't clear, or maybe what we see a lot, especially in the tech sector, is you might have a really strong technology, but in your marketing materials and messaging, you're talking too much about kind of the speeds and feeds and the features and functions of that technology and not kind of the pain points and the business impact that you solve. And then making sure that you're doing that in a way that uniquely positions your company and you're not like lost in a sea of business jargon and acronyms and buzzwords and sounding too much like everybody else.
Right. And so you enjoy working with clients who approach their marketing opportunity strategically and value the role of marketing, even if they might not understand it fully. How do you guide such clients in recognizing and leveraging marketing's potential to achieve, their individual business objectives?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a good point because just like you said, we want clients that value marketing. They don't have to understand marketing. Maybe they just have to know that it's a missing piece of where their company is and what they need to get to that next level. I would say there's one is a little bit of a misnomer sometimes, things that a CEO and founder might think of as kind of part of their growth strategy and their strategic analysis, that they don't realize how much of that should actually be informed through a marketing discipline. So marketing is not just kind of trade shows and lead gen creation and things of that nature. That's obviously important in the execution, but really how to look at that market strategically and use that to inform what the growth strategy and plan should be. And oftentimes, as we're bringing some of these kind of market insights around what's happening in the competitive landscape, what the target market is facing, what are alternatives, so not necessarily direct competitors, but how else is your target market solving the pain points that you can help to address. Like it can create real like light bulb moments and aha moments. And then when we explain now, how do you turn that into marketing language, into marketing programs and campaigns? So it's very rewarding to see that come together. And I think also making sure that the client understands that while you're working on the strategy, you should also have a parallel track of execution. Like there's always quick wins, there's always low-hanging fruit that you can be starting to drive results while you're getting those foundations in place. It doesn't need to be kind of months of strategy at the expense of driving activity, but you want like within those first few months to get both in place really well.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good point. And so it really comes down to like at the very foundation for working with the client is just hoping that they at least have an open mind. They don't have to understand everything that you're going to go to through, but and I think one of the big things as well, you don't see this as much in B2B, but in B2C you see it a lot more is understanding that marketing is an investment and not a cost, it's one of the few things that you can put a dollar into and get 5, 10, even $20 out, right? Again, I think B2B understands it a little bit more, but I feel like a lot of people think of it like, oh man, I on my P&L sheet, I got to put marketing here as this big cost that, if it's not bringing you more money than you're spending on it, then you need to change your strategy or you need to change your execution.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that like kind of age-old question around like what is the ROI on this? It can be a loaded topic, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're in B2B environments and there's a complex sales cycle and marketing is not the only one obviously involved in bringing in revenue, right? It's marketing plus sales together, but I think it comes back to setting the right expectations around what is realistic to achieve in the timeline, in the budget, given kind of your presence in the market, like all of those components, and then really being able to show the value and show the ROI, knowing that some things you can very closely tie to, dollars in, dollars out. And then other things like, brand awareness and, inbound and, certain things you can feel the difference, but not always kind of perfectly reflected in the metrics dashboards.
Right. And so I want to change gears here for a second. With marketing becoming more specialized, rapidly changing, especially with, generative AI, I mean, how does Magnitude Consulting stay ahead of these developments to provide relevant and effective marketing support to SMBs and even mid-market?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say, from a specialization standpoint, like we've believed in the importance of marketing specialization from the start, and that's a big part of our model is bringing in senior level strategists who are strong generalists and know how all the pieces fit together, and then having functional specialists in all of the different areas of marketing, because to your point, marketing has become more specialized. So you can't get away with not knowing the depths of search engine optimization and Google ads and all the other kinds of paid media and web development and graphic design, et cetera. At the same time, as we see now with generative AI, it's changing the game a bit, right? And I think it's hard for any one marketer to keep up and to know how to best utilize these tools and to make sure you're doing it without sacrificing the quality of what you're putting out there, because I think it's easier than it's ever been to put out mediocre stuff, and there's just so much noise out there, right? So you want to make sure what you're putting out is quality and deliberate and all of that. And for us on the AI front, I very early on realized how big of a game changer this was going to be. So my team is now, 3 years into being kind of coming along for the ride and looking at how do we use Gen AI? How do we, when do we go and look for a tool externally? What can we build internally? And how do we just make sure that we're bringing that value to the clients, like I said, without losing the quality of what we're putting out there, and also looking at what's next, because I think we're in a time where we're going to see so much more change than any of us have seen in our careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like every year they come out with a new chat GPT or new whatever, you know what I mean? And every year gets like infinitely better than last year. They're using infinite more data points and all that stuff. So it's pretty cool how rapidly it's changing. But you're right, it does give a lot of people the excuse to put out mediocre content because it's meant to be an efficiency tool or like like enhance what you're already doing, but it's not meant to replace tasks. And I think too many people try to use it to replace tasks. And in marketing, especially, that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Which again goes back to having those right foundations and really knowing kind of what's unique about your company, what does your target market care about, and how do you kind of authentically engage them, even if you're using technology and generative AI and all of that in the work, but not losing the stuff that is really important.
Yeah. And so, as a Forbes contributor and a thought leader, I mean, you've discussed various marketing challenges and strategies. Could you share maybe a key insight from your writings that you believe is like crucial for SMBs to consider in their marketing efforts, today?
Yeah, yeah. I would say, one area is, the sales and marketing alignment is an age-old topic. I think since I first started my career in marketing, it's been a conversation that's been out there. But I do think we're seeing more and more of a convergence between sales and marketing, and each kind of inching into the other's territory. And I think that's actually a good thing. I think it's really around how do you drive revenue and growth and a good brand reputation for a company to help them in their growth. And so that's a topic that, we've written about, and I've gotten really good feedback on really helping leaders think about how to think about their revenue and their growth function so that there's no misaligned incentives and you're really all working towards the same goal and kind of singing to the same tune, so to speak. Another area that I love writing about is just on the topic of business transformation. And you and I were just talking about marketing transformation, but all of this is because a company is never stagnant. And especially in the current world, we really always need to be innovating and changing and looking, are there different or better ways of doing things? Are there new offerings to bring? And so whether it's a business leader or a marketing leader, really making sure that we're continuing to kind of educate ourselves and push ourselves to look at how can we kind of do better at everything we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good point. Well, Natalie, I mean, thank you so much. This has been very enlightening and informative. You obviously are very, very good at your craft. Where can people learn a little bit more about you and where can people learn more about your agency?
Yeah, thank you. It's been a great conversation. And if people want to get in touch with me directly, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So folks can look me up there, Natalie Nathanson, and I know you'll share the links to that. And then for our company, magnitudeconsulting.com. I'll have the links for that as well. And then I also have a podcast called Shift and Thrive that talks a lot about business transformation and innovation. So happy for folks to check that out as well.
Well, yeah, I'll link that below as well. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. Thanks for being on today.
Thanks for having me.